So we gotta talk about the Epstein file stuff, and you know, I don't trust MAGA to respond to this, because I've seen reports of people trying to defend Trump's obvious pedophilia. So let's avoid that by watching somebody who's actually got some reputation cover this instead. Who here is familiar with Philip DeFranco? If you're not, then he's a guy who I actually have a lot of respect for. He tends to cover the news from a very neutral position, but in terms of things he actually believes, he tends to seem pretty decent, at least from like a liberal perspective, which is pretty good. That's not bad at all. And he's got a lot of viewers as well. So let's see what Philly D has to say about the Epstein file shenanigans.
Has gotten crazier and crazier. I mean, the floodgates blew open last night. Because yesterday morning, Democrats on the House Oversight Committee, they released 3 emails that they obtained from Jeffrey Epstein's estate. And those included bits where Epstein called Trump the dog that hasn't barked, said a victim since reported to be Virginia Giuffre spent hours at my house with him, and said about Trump, of course he knew about the girls as he asked Ghislaine to stop. But also in response, you had the committee's Republicans claiming, hey, those emails were selectively chosen, redacted, and taken out of context. And well, now they've dumped the entire 23,000 document trove from the estate, but rather than exonerating Trump, they just make him look much, much worse. Right, so let's go through these revelations.
That's kind of crazy. So the 3 emails, the ones that I saw definitely seem to paint Trump in a very, very bad light. They did not paint him in a very good position at all. But having somebody go and basically do the equivalent of like when you say the Bible supports slavery, and they go, oh, you're just taking the Bible out of context. And so you go, okay, cool. Here's the context where it's made so much worse. This is just that.
One by one, though I will say first, Epstein, really awful at grammar. But it's like every casual boomer email I've ever seen. It typos galore, he doesn't capitalize the right letter, punctuation's all over the place. But as far as stuff that actually matters, probably the biggest bombshell to come out from this latest drop is an Epstein email written in February of 2019. Right, because apparently he's referring to the sexual abuse of underage girls, and he wrote, Trump knew of it and came to my house many times during that period. He never got a massage. Also in 2015, Epstein emailed a then New York Times reporter.
So I have to ask you a question. If you found out that your friend had been, oh, I don't know, molesting women and molesting children for years, do you continue that friendship? Do you blow the load on it, or do you just let it happen? Because I've seen some defenses of this saying that, oh, well, he didn't get a massage, he didn't get these things, so then it's okay. It's like, if you're watching a child predator molest a child and you don't lift a finger to do anything about it, what does that make you other than just a fucking accomplice?
Reporter, would you like photos of Donald and girls in bikinis in my kitchen? Though there, despite replying yes, the reporter says that he never actually got those photos. But he did get an anecdote with Epstein suggesting people should, quote, ask my houseman about Donald almost walking through the door, leaving his nose print on the glass as young women were swimming in the pool, and he was so focused he walked straight into the door. Many of the emails were also just packed full of vicious insults that Epstein had for Trump with him.
That's also gross. Like, that is being the cartoon character so obsessed with the bodies of young women and girls that you are literally just Wile E. Coyoteing yourself into a fucking window.
For example, telling the same reporter, he feels alone and is nuts. I told everyone from day one, evil.
Cinder, thank you for redeeming your points for an Ada, you fucking degen. And Old Gus, thank you for redeeming your points for an Elwo.
Beyond belief, mad, and most thought I was speaking metaphorically. It's obvious he could crack. Stormy Daniels, lies after lies after lies. Then in a 2018 exchange with the author Michael Wolff, Epstein referred to Dopey Donald and Demented Donald, saying that his finances were all a sham. And the year before, when someone called Trump so gross, Epstein replied, worse in real life and up close. And in a conversation with Larry Summers, Epstein once called Trump borderline insane. When Summers asked whether Trump would crack into insanity, Epstein said his strength is remarkable. He is pounded 24/7. I hope someone close to him gets indicted, but not sure. Otherwise, the pressure of the unknown will force him to do crazy things. And Epstein saying at another point, your world does not understand how dumb he really is. He will blame everyone around him for bad results. Also in late 2018, though it's unclear.
So the thing that Trump actually did, that lends some veracity to this. Like, that lends some salience to this for me, because when the people around Trump, like in their hush-hush conversations, are actually pointing out how awful he is, like, they don't admonish him the way that people do on the public stage.
what the context is. Someone emailed Epstein, it will all blow over. They're really just trying to take down Trump and doing whatever they can to do that. To which the famed billionaire pedophile replied, "It's wild because I am the one able to take him down." And well, that is pretty much it for the insult. There's also a lot of really interesting stuff to grab onto here. With, for example, the modeling agency co-founder Faith Cates asking Epstein in 2017 where he was spending Thanksgiving, and then later asking who else is down there, to which Epstein replied, David Feisel, Hansen, Trump. And the year before, during an exchange with a members-only club founder Jenny Enterprise, Epstein said that he spent Thanksgiving in Palm with the Trump crowd. Or with that one not necessarily meaning Donald Trump himself, though the first email certainly seems like it. And that would be really standout because that appears to contradict Trump's claim that he broke off contact with Epstein after 2004. Though also, as you may have guessed from some of the other emails, they don't appear to have, been friendly, even if that was true. And in fact, the emails show that Epstein was frequently working with his associates to dig up dirt on Trump, though the reasons weren't clear. Or with him in 2012 suggesting that his lawyer investigate Trump's finances, including the mortgage on Mar-a-Lago and a $30 million loan that Epstein said Trump had received. Also in 2019, one of Epstein's advisors apparently went through Trump's federal financial disclosure form, which he called 100 pages of nonsense, and emailed Epstein 9 interesting findings. And those including information about the president's foundation, businesses, and assets. Also, another email that's gotten some attention is one between Epstein and a top European official that was written in June of 2018, notably 1 month before Trump met Vladimir Putin in Helsinki. And Epstein suggested that the official tell Putin that Russia's foreign minister Sergei Lavrov could get insight on Trump by talking to him, and adding that Vitaly Churkin, Russia's then
So I'm curious, because there's a bit that was hit on earlier where Epstein said that he's the one that could take Trump down. Now, just out of curiosity, if you are a known pedophile and the pedophilia that you have engaged in is so profound and damaging that it is something that could, ruin not just you, but multiple people around you, more so than you already ruined the lives of several fucking young people, but if that pedophilia is, so long-standing, so massive, such a giant thing, and you're sitting there going, actually, I'm the one that could take Trump down, does that not lean into the idea that it would be, that Trump's fucking worse? Kind of leans into that a little bit. Now, granted, that doesn't mean that he 100% is at all. But if a monster is saying that they could take me down by accusing me of the same monstrous things that they have been doing, I feel like that is one of the most terrifying prospects around in general. Because that means that there is something I have done that is so heinous that it could even overshadow what that other monster had done.
Ambassador to the United Nations used to, but he died. With Epstein then elaborating on the insight he could provide, saying, "It is not complex. He must be seen to get something. It's that simple." Also, in another exchange with former White House counsel Catherine Rumler in 2018, they discussed Michael Cohen, who admitted to conspiring with Trump to pay Stormy Daniels hush money. Or with Epstein saying, "You see, I know how dirty Donald is. My guess is that non-lawyers, New York biz people have no idea what it means to have your fixer flip." And y'all, there is so much more. We've got emails between Epstein and former Prince Andrew, Woody Allen's wife, Steve Bannon, Peter Thiel, tons of people. There's really just so much more we could go through. But of course, the main spotlight right now is on the revelations about Epstein and Trump, though there are varying responses here. Right, of course, you have Democrats saying a lot of this is concerning, appears to shed a light on a lot, really playing them up. But they're also accusing the GOP of dumping so many documents at once to distract from the few specific things that look really bad. Or the idea being that instead of
I'm in two minds about that. Yes, you could argue that dumping 23,000 documents is a way to try to bury the evidence within the documents. But on the other hand, one fucking clerk with autism is going to pour through all of that in a week. That's literally all it takes to circumvent that problem.
They're letting the Democrats drip feed these emails to the press. Republicans can kind of just rip off the Band-Aid. But also the Republicans, they counter that all the other documents are the real point and the focus on Trump is the real distraction. And you even had Trump himself posting on Truth Social. The Democrats are trying to bring up the Jeffrey Epstein hoax again because they'll do anything at all to deflect on how badly they've done on the shutdown. And
so here's the thing. They're going to bring up the Jeffrey Epstein thing because it's the thing that you've been trying to do damage control. Dems are going to bring up the Jeffrey Epstein thing because of all the things that do not stick to Donald, of all the things that do not stick to Teflon Don, hey, this guy's actually a pedophile is one of the few things that seems to have actually worked to get both sides agreeing on something. Because the Democrats and the Republicans usually split on almost every issue, but when you find a bipartisan issue they can both agree in, it's protecting fucking children.
so many other subjects. Only a very bad or stupid Republican would fall into that trap. The Democrats cost our country $1.5 trillion with their recent antics of viciously closing our country, while at the same time putting many at risk, and they should pay a fair price. There should be no deflections to Epstein or anything else, and any Republicans involved should be focused only on opening up our country and fixing the massive damage caused by the Democrats. But then with that, you have people asking, well, okay, if this is just a nonsense distraction, then it doesn't explain why he's apparently been scrambling to prevent any more of the Epstein files from getting out. Right? I mean, is top...
Yeah, again, if it's a distraction, why do you have damage control over it? Why are you doing damage control over it so goddamn hard? When somebody does something that is just a distraction, the right thing to do is to ignore it instead of be, I don't know, distracted by it.
White House officials had meetings with Representatives Lauren Boebert and Nancy Mace yesterday, reportedly trying to persuade them to take their names off the discharge petition. But the petition, it passed yesterday, setting in motion the process that'll end with a floor vote in the House on whether to make Trump release the Epstein files. So with all this, I do want to note that both Boebert and Mace defended Trump when asked about the meetings.
The president has not forced me to do anything. The president has not put pressure on me. I was not asked by the president to remove my name. Every conversation that I had was welcomed and very civil, and it's okay for people to have discussions about things that are going on with our nation.
I am deeply frustrated with the press. All this focus on Trump, who's been exonerated by the Epstein victims, and
was he exonerated by the Epstein victims? Is it the same? Okay, if somebody pays hush money on something, is that the same as exoneration? If somebody goes to settle in court, is that the same as exoneration? Because I wouldn't say so. Unless we have a completely different idea of what the word exonerated means.
And we're not focused on the Epstein victims or their stories. It is disingenuous. And I don't like playing politics with rape. I don't like playing politics with child rape. I don't like playing politics with sex trafficking, but that's what Democrats are doing.
Now, as far as Mike Johnson, he says he's going to put the resolution to release the Epstein files up for a vote on the House floor next week. And that, notably after Republican Representative Tim Burchett actually tried to fast track the vote using a procedure called unanimous consent. Something that many have called a sneaky move because it would have not required lawmakers to actually go on the record in a roll call vote. But that, it failed, and so now Republicans are headed straight for this iceberg of voting yes or no on releasing the Epstein files, or getting where they stand documented in public. But with all this, you did have Thomas Massie telling Politico,
every single person that votes no on releasing the Epstein files needs to be investigated. Every single one, because if you are willing to say that the Epstein files are not a thing that we need to be privy to, if we don't need to be privy to the abuses of not just Donald Trump, but everybody who is in the elite class who could have been harming people sexually, if that is not a pertinent concern to you, then you do not need to be a person who represents people, parents, children. You do not need to be a representative at all in government, because you obviously can't handle that.
I'm certain the House vote will succeed. Some Republican members who are not signers on the petition have told me they will vote for the measure when the vote is called, and adding, I suspect there will be many more. And with that, you have sources telling Politico that senior Republicans privately believe that dozens of Republicans will vote for it, possibly 100 or more. In fact, we're already seeing a handful of Republican lawmakers who didn't sign the petition saying that they will vote for the actual measure. But for now, we're gonna have to wait to see what happens with that vote. Also, wait to see what else pops from these emails. And in the meantime, I would really love to know your thoughts, opinions, and reactions to everything here, especially regarding all the Epstein emails. But then next up, in a different kind of news, this Cynthia Erivo, Ariana Grande situation's kind of crazy. Because Cynthia...
Okay, and I'm not super concerned with everything else in here. It's mostly the Epstein conversation that I'm concerned with. When Philly D does his videos, he does the same thing that a lot of news heads do, where they have a bunch of different things to go over all at the same time. And I completely understand that format. That format's not really for me generally. I like a video being about a thing. So I'm not gonna sit here and criticize Philly D on this. What I will say is, Jesus fucking Christ, we live in a crazy time. We live in a crazy time right now where there are politicians who, yes, for years, people in power have been corrupt, obviously, but we have a unique scenario where we can out a ton of corrupt and abusive politicians all at the same time. Lunaria says, I'm amazed the victims haven't already released lists. So here's the thing. I am not amazed by that, because if you are a victim who has escaped the power of Epstein and the people who he brought onto his island for massages, if you are a victim who's escaped that, and yet you decide to take the plunge back into that world, you are willingly accepting that several millionaires and even potentially some billionaires are going to now have a reason to retaliate against you. And the ways that they might retaliate against you, things like preventing your family members from being able to get a job ever again. You can potentially fuck things over for your entire family because the people you're dealing with have that kind of power. It's like dealing with the mob and recognizing that you need to make sure that certain drugs, for instance, are not illegal. But the mob wants those things to be illegal because them being illegal creates a black market that makes them a lot of money. And you recognize that if you're the politician that passes that, you're gonna get fucking killed. The mob is gonna try to collect one way, shape, or form. And that's not a good thing. That's not a good sign about how our society operates, but it is a real way that our society operates. And that fucking terrifies me.
Yeah, Revo just...
Oh, what am I doing playing the video again? We're done with the video. Said the real president of Earth said the mafia never went away, it got elected. Understandable. And that is a perspective that also has to be considered. Because then the people in power, you know, they are the mob. And when you do things that go against the mob is going to try to come to collect due. So that even if they lose this battle today, they won't lose another one again. Crosswalking Cobalt says, is that why recreational weed is still illegal in so many places in the United States? I don't think so. So with weed specifically, like when we're talking about specifics, weed is tied in to certain racial cultures, and Nixon specifically wanted this kind of stuff illegalized because it allowed the United States government to attack cultures that were known for imbibing or selling these drugs. It allowed them a way to engage in criminal abuse. While the idea of black markets being a thing that cartels want to maintain is something that I believe has happened in broad strokes, I think if we're talking about specifically something like weed, you've got a lot of propaganda against cannabis to undo. You've got a lot of reasons that infrastructure against drugs was made in the first place. It's where there's not a simple answer to it. There is an aspect of it which might be the black market, an aspect of it which very well might be the way that the police want to use it as an issue to attack people. Politicians wanting to keep that going. It could be A, B, C, or all of the above. Axel says weed is like the least harmful drug, technically. So technically, weed is one of the least harmful drugs we have, but also not having as much research done into it because, you know, when it's illegal, it's hard to do that. It's hard to get funding for that. It's a statement that we can make right now, and we can find information on later showing that it's actually worse than we thought. Who knows? Kurtzgazad actually put out a video recently about weed that kind of goes into some of the ways that it's actually a little more harmful than we originally thought. But because studies had not been done on it, because it was impossible to actually get studies done on it, because who the fuck's gonna fund saying, hey, let's have a bunch of people do something that's entirely illegal that the police could get in on at any point and fuck up. But the video kind of went into some of the reasons that it still does some harm. It's not as harmless as we generally considered. Tal says caffeine would be the least harmful drug. To a degree. I mean, enough caffeine does just cause heart attacks. Scromiting? What is scromiting? I'm unsure of what scromiting is. I don't think I've ever heard about that. Rogue says Tylenol is the least harmful drug. No, Tylenol causes autism. How dare you say that Tylenol is the least harmful drug when it causes the autism? Did you not hear God Emperor Trump, Lord and Savior of our kind? Crosswalking says, beat me to the joke. Jeez. Anyway, if anything else develops on this, I'm going to try to cover it as I can. Hey, you made it to the end. I want to give an extra thanks to the patrons who allow me to do this full time. I want to thank Aaron Rail, Astral, Britzkrieg, Jemshin, Poundini, Red Joker, Victoria, Jonas, Craig, Tarika, Fireshard, Smiling GM, John, Dren Hadamada, Creeper, Sagitta, you know I'm not saying that last part, Valis of Seraph, Ottoman Angel, Rooster Rachel, and Fire Panda, who are all my $20 and up patrons.